Ladies and gentlemen, live from the West Coast, it's time for Ring Talk Live Worldwide. Your inside look into combat sports. Ring Talk Live Worldwide, brought to you by the WBC, the World Boxing Council.
It is absolutely necessary that we all get together. We work together. We respect each other. We like and love each other.
And now, the host of the longest-running fight show in radio and internet history.
I'm getting tired of people running from me in the ring. Mike Tyson, Holyfield, you a bunch of bums. Stand up and be a man and fight a real fighter.
Pedro Fernandez.
Damas y caballeros, bienvenidos, ladies and gentlemen. Emanating, coming at you from the multi-million-dollar Sports Pylon Studios. Check it. This is it. Ring Talk Live Worldwide. Often imitated, but hardly duplicated. 37. No, make that 38 plus years now of knocking out all bums. Who am I? My name is Pedro Fernandez. I am the undisputed heavyweight champion of the radio hours, folks. I'm also an award-winning writer. I won 4 Golden Glove titles, so I'm a sort of a unique combination. I could fight, I could write, and now I'm hosting the show. So straight up, let's talk boxing. I open it for toll-free at the top of each hour just for you. You want to one part? You can. Want to be part of the show? You can. Here's the toll-free. 1-800-878-7529. That's 1-800-878-7529. Of course, you can also text me here in the studio. Studio text line is 415-532-4867. The studio text line once again. And my confusing numbers, let's go with the text line. 415-532-4867. Of course, we are 2 weeks away from the welterweight showdown, the biggest fight since Leonard Hearns. No, maybe the biggest fight since De La Hoya and Trinidad. Of course, that was a bit of a snoozer as far as the fight results were concerned. But of course, there was lots of buildup going in. Both men were undefeated. Of course, this fight is going to go down. I'm talking about the guy from Omaha, Nebraska. I'm talking about Terrence Crawford. Puts you 37-0, of course, taking on Errol Spence. Errol Spence doesn't look like he's been smoking weed for a long. It looks like he's been in rehab. I kid you not. I mean, he hasn't looked high in a while. So I think Errol Spence will come in at 100%. Terrence Crawford will come in at 100%. And I think it's going to boil down to will and size. Size matters in 2 things, pornography and combat sports. This is combat sports. And this is Ring Talk Live Worldwide on WBC TV, of course, as well as Twitch.tv, the Sports Pylon USA channel. Straight up, you are tuned to the longest-running fight industry. After the break, we'll go back into the world of boxing with Johnny Signorella.
31 800 4531.
Now, more of Ring Talk with Pedro Fernandez.
Woo! Sounds like the theme song for the Dominican Dandy. Of course, we're talking about boxing's PhD, Socrates Palmer. He's on vacation. Actually, in the Dominican as I speak. I kid you not, kicking it. Of course, we call him Dominican Dandy. Of course, that was Juan Marichal. He is the pitcher from the Dominican Republic for the San Francisco Giants. Of course, he was a Hall of Famer without a doubt. But the Dominican Dandy will be back next week on Ring Talk Live Worldwide. Johnny Signorella will join us 24 minutes past the hour. All kinds of things happening today on Ring Talk Live Worldwide. Of course, as far as the TV schedule is concerned, Frank Martin and a guy named Arthur Harudaman are going to hook it up on Showtime. Of course, that's going to be a lightweight contest. The Zone's got Alicia Bumgarner, of course, a ladies woman champion, female super featherweight champion, 130 pounds, taking on Christina Leonardo. And of course, ESPN's going to go in next week, the 25th. Take it back to the Rock. Of course, we'll talk about Stephen Fulton and Inoue. We'll get into that in a little bit. But straight up, let's talk boxing, of course. Last week, the results, it's one of those weekends where it wasn't the greatest weekend in the world of boxing, but it wasn't a bad weekend either. I mean, people want to talk about Jaron Ennis. Of course, Jaron Ennis I thought was quite impressive. Of course, when he rolled over, a guy that could punch, but he couldn't fight. I don't know what's the word I'm looking to use. Put it this way: the guys were on different levels. That's what was happening here. Ennis is up here. Okay, Villa is about here. Villa's an average fighter, a little bit above average fighter, but he's a Colombian, and Colombians can crack. So I thought that maybe the Colombian would catch him on the chin. Maybe something could happen. But Jaron Ennis and his beard, although I don't like his beard, but the bottom line is he brings that unique look into the ring, and he performed admirably. Maybe he lost the 5th round on all 3 judges' scorecards, and I think he lost the 3rd round on 1 judge's scorecard. But outside of that, it was a shutout. But he's still undefeated. Jaron Ennis of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Of course, a lot of people think now 31-0, 28 KOs, that he is the heir apparent to greatness at 147 pounds. Of course, but we haven't got any true greatness at 147. We have Terrence Crawford, and of course, Earl Spence going to hook it up 2 weeks from today. Of course, the T-Mobile Arena. It's packed. It's sold out. Of course, they should have put this in the stadium outdoors in Las Vegas. But they don't listen to me. Straight up, of course, Crawford from Omaha, Nebraska. Earl Spence from Texas. Earl Spence is, I think he should be the slight favorite going into this if he didn't get thrown out of a car at 150 miles an hour. In other words, that is what I think is going to be. It's an intangible. It's something we can't measure the damage or that this took. Come on, man, you'll get tossed out of a car. He was drunk. He was lucky he was drunk. Of course, it was the reason why he was getting chased at 100. They say he was being chased at 115, at 150 miles an hour. In other words, he wasn't like joyriding or anything like that. He was being chased. Somebody was chasing him. And a little added story that he had a $10,000 handgun in the car. He was drunk as a skunk. They didn't say he was on any chemicals. They just said he was drunk. Wink, wink. But the bottom line is he got hurt. He got thrown out of his car at 115 miles an hour, man. 150 miles an hour. Landed on the cement, suffered a concussion. No doubt about it. There was some brain bleed. There wasn't any fractures, any skull fractures or anything like that. No broken bones, I don't believe. But anyway, the bottom line is he did have the red around the blood around the retina, which definitely indicates there was a brain bleed. Okay, so evidently he did have a concussion, without a doubt. 150 miles an hour getting thrown out of a car, but he was lucky he was drunk. I think if he wasn't drunk, he would have stiffened up, and I think he wouldn't be okay today. But he was drunk, and I think that was the reason why that Earl Spence is still alive. Of course, Earl Spence is a 154-pound lad. In other words, he was a fighter that debuted at 154 pounds. He came down to welterweight, or the 147-pound limit, strictly for the money. That's where he wants to make the money. That's where the money's at. Of course, he didn't think that it would be him and Terrence Crawford eventually, but I guess it is him and Terrence Crawford. Of course, Crawford, Omaha, Nebraska, had Bob Arum treating him pretty good there for a few years. Of course, Bob Arum sort of brought him to the lightweight in the junior welterweight division. And when Arum took him to 147 pounds, he said, you know what, I'm out of here. Of course, we don't know what Terrence Crawford is going to do after this fight, but straight up, Showtime pay-per-view, July 29th, coming to you from the T-Mobile Arena, the Battle of the Undefeated. Who do I like? You know, if Spence hadn't get tossed out of the car, I'd go with Spence. But then again, you got to bring in the ghetto factor, and Omaha, Nebraska is not known for being like a ghetto or anything like that. But Terrence Crawford brings some ghetto to the dance. He just does, which is you have to. Yeah, I mean you have to an extent. Spence to an extent too. But Spence is more like the golly gee whiz type of guy. And as I said, I think he's in rehab and that he hasn't smoked any weed, unlike myself. Probably in about a month and a half. And no, I can tell in the interviews. I look at him in the interviews, and he's like, straight, and his eyes are not glossy. I mean, look at Earl Spence before. His eyes were always glossy. The guy's always buzzed, I thought. Anyway, bottom line is he will put it all on the line. Both guys, undefeated marks, of course, at 147 pounds. This is not the biggest fight, as I said, I'm repeating myself, not the biggest fight since September of 1981. Of course, we talk about Leonard and Hearns. Of course, that was won in the 14th round when Sugar Ray Leonard battered Tommy Hearns up against the ropes. And, of course, my man, when I think about the referee, Davey Pearl, they call him the bell boy. When he came to Las Vegas, he was a bell guy. He carried suitcases for people like in the 1940s, okay? And then, of course, he had an insurance company. He became like one of the prolific referees and prolific boxing officials in the world. But when he stopped that fight in the 14th round, Tommy Hearns didn't complain. Emmanuel Stewart didn't complain. Nobody complained. That was a perfect stoppage. September 21st, I believe, 1981. Now, this is going to go down July 29th, 2023. A lot has happened in the welterweight division between now and then, okay? And, of course, we've had, as mentioned, the De La Hoya Trinidad run. I think the De La Hoya's run, people knock Oscar. People say Oscar was nothing but a glory boy. Of course, they dog him because he got into transsexualism, or what do they call that? When he dressed up as a girl a couple of times and he shaved his legs. I don't know why he would do that, except cocaine's a hell of a drug. Anyway, he has some cocaine issues. Yes, this is all admitted. I'm not breaking any new news here. Anyway, the bottom line is, when I ran with that story, I guess it was about 2008, I ran with it at ringtalk.com when I had a website. And everybody was saying to me, oh, man, you're dogging Oscar. But guess what? Oscar never denied it. He did deny it was him. And I remember sending the pictures to Emmanuel Stewart, the retired Goldfather. It was his birthday last week. He retired in late deceased Goldfather, the Kronk Gym, of course, the HBO analyst, trainer, Tommy Hearns, all these guys. But, man, when I sent Emmanuel these pictures of Oscar De La Hoya in drag, I said, is that Oscar? Because we thought the photos were, I thought they were photo touched or touched up or something like that. And then somebody sent them to me so I could get sued. I mean, I thought this was a sucker move. I thought they were suckering me into getting sued. That's what I thought. So I'm not going to put these up on the website unless I'm sure it's Oscar. I looked at it. I was Oscar's publicist back in 1990, 1991. Of course, before he became a star and won the Olympic gold medal in 1992. Of course, he was doing this thing for Carl DeMay, the boxing manager back then. But I knew Oscar back then, and I think that when Oscar's star started to develop at 140 pounds, of course, he beat the over-the-hill Julio Cesar Chavez, this and that. And people say that Oscar's fights were all well-picked and well-timed. Well, he fought everybody. I mean, he fought Fernando Vargas. Vargas had him out in the first round. Vargas was on steroids. I mean, performance-enhancing drugs, no doubt about that. He tested positive afterwards. You look at his body. I mean, the kid from Oxnard, the guy that gets off, I told you he was a ketchup addict, right? Not a Coke addict, a ketchup addict. He was addicted to ketchup. Anyway, if you look at him nowadays, looks like he's still eating ketchup, a lot of ketchup. Anyway, bottom line is, Fernando Vargas had Oscar De La Hoya not on the ropes, but on the cliff, on the edge of the cliff of death. He just right there. And De La Hoya showed the intestinal fortitude, the cojones, the stones to withstand that. I mean, I thought it was over. I was in the first row going, man, this is the end of Oscar without that. But Oscar came back and he stopped the bigger guy. Of course, the bigger guy was on steroids too. Vargas did everything he could going into that fight to cheat. That's just the way it is. I mean, he took steroids. He was a bigger guy. I mean, he had all these advantages, and he couldn't win. Size matters in two things: pornography and combat sports. That day, size didn't win. Of course, Oscar De La Hoya stopping Fernando Vargas inside the distance and capturing, of course, the 154-pound crown. Now, as far as Oscar is concerned, all-time greats, I mean, where do you put him at 147? You got to put him somewhere, I think, in the top 10, because he beats a lot of those guys. I mean, listen, people say to me, Sugar Ray Robinson, guy born Walker Smith Jr., of course, the former world welterweight, 147 pounds, and middleweight, 160 pounds, of course, the greatest pound-for-pound fighter, all that kind of stuff. I get tired of hearing that. Yeah, he had a good record, but most of his record, if you look at it, he was fighting guys like me. I mean, no, take that back. He was fighting guys that couldn't fight at all. At least at one point I could fight. I can't now. But the bottom line is, he was fighting guys. It was like a circus act. I mean, the career of Sugar Ray Robinson, for the most part, was a circus act. Now, Larry Merchant jumps in and tells me, well, those tough guys, they didn't fight the best guys all the time. Ray Robinson fought a lot of hobos. I mean, a lot of hobos. At 147 pounds, if you look at his resume, I think there's Keith Gavilan and there's Henry Armstrong. And he told me he fought Keith Gavilan to give him a payday, and he fought Armstrong to give him a payday. So what I'm trying to tell you is that Ray Robinson was handing out welfare checks. He was a world champion. He was a good guy. I was around him, but as far as the best fighter ever, I don't know. I'm still leaning for the guy from Panama. I mean, Roberto Duran. I look at him he turned pro at like 122, was world ranked at 126. Stepped up to 135, and that's 9 pounds. A big difference. Stepped up to 135, won the World Lightweight Championship. I think he defended it like a record amount of times. Without a doubt, he was like the greatest lightweight champion of all time. Past 140, was going to fight at 140, but Antonio Cervantes was a champion at 140, and he was tight with the WBA, and Duran and his people were tight with the WBA, so they decided to give the Colombian a pass. So he didn't get to fight at 140. Went to 147, beat the all-time great, I think, at 147, Ray Charles Leonard. That's right. I think the best welterweight of all time was Sugar Ray Leonard, without a doubt. I mean, you talk about speed, you talk about power, you talk about combination punching. I mean, what didn't Ray Leonard do? And when he was hurt, good Lord, when you knocked him down, like Donnie Lalonde knocked him down in that fight, they had that catch weight fight at 168 pounds when Ray Leonard was getting old, of course, and they had that catch weight fight. Donnie Lalonde knocked him down. I said, that's it for Donnie Lalonde. He just pissed off Ray Leonard. And Ray got up and beat that ass. That's what it is. You want to motivate Ray? Crack him a couple times. Anyway, of course, the greatest welterweight of all time. People say to me, he disgraced himself at the end. Why? Because he lost to Hector Camacho and he lost to Terry Norris. There's no shame in losing to those guys. He didn't lose to me. If he'd lost to me, that would have been shameful. But he didn't lose to me. He didn't lose to Daniel. I mean, come on, man. He didn't lose to us. He lost to great fighters. Of course, he was old. People didn't realize that. In that last Camacho fight, I hate to tell people, but I televised that fight, and Ray Leonard went into that fight with a ruptured Achilles tendon. A ruptured Achilles tendon. I mean, he's willing to fight on that because the show must go on, Pedro. That's what he told me. The show must go on. It went on. Of course, he put some weight on that foot. In the second round, he was done as far as the fight with him and Camacho. You are tuned to Ring Talk Live Worldwide. Your inside look in the world of boxing and MMA.
I know that you want me, Lord, have mercy.
Luego de su retiro en el 2014, José Luis incursionó en el mundo de la política, así que sus peleas se hicieron en el Congreso de Sonora, su estado natal. Pero antes, se distinguió por ser un boxeador altamente combativo y con una valentía que espantaba. Ganó el Campeonato Mundial Ligero WBC por decisión mayoritaria, imponiéndose al estadounidense Steve Johnston en el año 2000. Lo defendió exitosamente en 3 ocasiones y tras perderlo, lo recuperaría en el 2004. Su carrera se extendió 10 años más, dando siempre muestras de gran pundonor.
Nine six five.
Now more of Ring Talk with Pedro Fernandez.
Soul Side of Town, Mighty Tower of Power, one of their recent recordings. They call them drops now. They don't call them records anymore. They don't call them LPs. They don't call them CDs. They call them drops. That's one of the latest drops from Tower of Power on the Soul Side of Town. Check it out, towerofpower.com. Well, straight up, of course, we take it to Las Vegas and bring in my man. How about Johnny Signorella? Johnny Sig, how's life treating you?
Excellent, Pedro. How you doing today, man?
Doing fine, man. No complaints whatsoever. None. Let's talk about Devin Haney for a second. Because you and I talked about this on last Sunday show. Of course, Johnny's with us every Sunday on Ring Talk Live Worldwide, the Sunday edition, 11 a.m. Pacific time, for 2 hours, of course, on Sunday. The Saturday edition, which you are airing right now, usually features Socrates Palmer at this point in time, but the Dominican Dandy is on vacation. So Johnny Sig has been kind enough to step in for the boxing's PhD. Talk to me. How good is Floyd Schofield?
Schofield is good. You saw him last week. Put those tools on display. Used the ring excellently. Great combinations. Very impressive. Very impressive last week.
Would you call him a prospect?
Yes, absolutely a prospect. A very strong prospect.
Okay. As far as Ennis is concerned, is he the premier challenger for the 147-pound crown that these guys are supposed to battle it out for next week or in 2 weeks?
I believe so, man. He's got all the proper tools, in the toolbox. Great combination puncher. Again, awesome ring generalship, movement, the IQ's there. Everything looks great for Ennis moving forward. I was very impressed last week. Actually, the whole card on Showtime last week. We had our 6-1 underdog on there.
Talk about that for a second.
Oh man, that was something else, man. What was that? That was the co-feature. We had Marquise Taylor, who's a 6-1 underdog against Yoelvis Gomes, and he stopped. He got the unanimous decision. Battered that boy in that fight. Big underdog there. You don't see that too much nowadays. 6-1.
15-1-2. Get this, one knockout.
One. I had to do a double take on the TV, Pedro. Well, and then I went to BoxRec. I was like, wait a minute, no way.
The scores were 96-93, 96-93, and 99-90. 99-90 was probably closer to the real score, don't you think?
I believe so, yeah.
96-93, they were trying to keep the other guy in the fight?
Yep, no doubt about it. Trying to save that O, but it got to go that night.
Okay, Johnny Sig's our guest. Roman Villa, we talked about him. I asked you if he was a live dog or just a dog, and you said he was a dog. As far as skill levels were concerned, I mean, he's sort of would you put him like a C+ or a B fighter against an A fighter? It was just different level and class there, wasn't it?
Different level, but I tell you what, Mavia, man, he definitely could take a punch, shows a lot of heart, a lot of grit, determination. So that kind of brings him to like a strong B, I think, because to pass that test against him, and I hate to refer to him as a test because he can still win some fights, obviously, and do some great things with his career. But the bottom line is he's going to be a handful for anyone. He's tough. So I got to give him a very strong, B. He's going to be a tough opponent for anyone to get out of there.
Okay. Somebody shot me a text here real quick. Jared Anderson's got another fight coming up in about 2 months, I believe. But was he impressive against Charles Martin? Charles Martin's an aged former IBF title holder. Of course, Henry Tillman got him in pretty good shape, but he's never been somewhat of a real big threat at heavyweight. Is Anderson the real deal? Do you know yet?
Are we talking about the heavyweight?
Yeah, Jared Anderson.
Jared Anderson. Okay. Yes, sir. I need boxing Viagra for that guy. I'm sorry. I just a little bored with his performance last time I saw him. I want good things for the kid. He's got the look. But right now, I think he's got some work to do.
Okay. I want to say, Gervonta Davis got out of jail yesterday. Did you see that on the internet?
I did. Yes, I did.
He looked like he hadn't shaved or had a haircut in a month, huh?
I think it's a good look for him.
He looked like he was in disguise.
You know what the thing is, though? He's always got his hair tied back when we see him in the ring, so we're not used to seeing him. Maybe that's how he rolls.
I sort of like his story. You and I talked about his story. Of course, he's got a mother had a crack issue or something like that. Don't know who his father is, that kind of good stuff. Came up from the hood. At first, I was sort of anti-Gervonta Davis. Then he got on Rolly Romero's case, and as Rolly Romero showed up to a press conference in the sun, in 105 degrees in the sun, wearing a fur coat. Remember that one?
Yeah, I do.
I mean, so when he popped out, he goes, "Blood, it's awful hot here," or something like that. I became enamored with Gervonta Davis from that point forward. Of course, he's like 29-0, 27 knockouts. Of course, that last fight was Ryan Garcia. The fight of the year wasn't, was it?
You know, I thought it was the event for sure, not the fight. And I think that fight was exactly what Gervonta Davis wanted. You know, just 6 rounds, you know, make that money, get that under bet, and bang, get out of there. Get that kid out of there. Because he did everything in the boxing world that we knew he was going to do to Garcia. You know, but I think he's definitely one of the best on the planet in Gervonta Davis. I look forward to seeing what this kid could do with a strong head on his shoulders. Man, he's going to be one of the best in boxing. He already is, but potentially to be the best.
Okay. You can't make chicken soup out of chicken spit. When I say spit on the show, a lot of times I mean spit with an H, okay? So the bottom line is Joe Goossen couldn't do anything with Ryan Garcia. What makes us so sure that Earl Spence's people in Texas can do anything with Ryan Garcia? In other words, you know, when Joe Goossen, I thought Joe would be the boss. Joe was always a kick-ass dude in the gym. He took care of business. No matter who it was, he was in control, okay? So I figured when he got a hold of Ryan Garcia, he was going to slap Ryan Garcia around and get him straight. But instead, he told me that Ryan Garcia was, quote, training him was, quote, a collaboration of Ryan Garcia's father, and then he mentioned myself. So, like, he was third on the list.
Yeah, here's the thing, you know, and some people might find this funny, maybe a little joke for you. Joe Goossen is always known for having the best shirts in the game. His shirt game's been off lately, and his fighter's been off too. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just seems like something was lost in that camp. Like, it wasn't a very, like, public camp. They really didn't talk too much. I understand you don't want to talk too much about strategy before a fight, but the bottom line is it didn't seem like there was any changes going on that were positive signs that they felt very confident about Garcia. You know, and then we saw it in the ring that there wasn't really much changed at all. Ryan Garcia's head was in the air. All the bad tactics of leaning in, pulling back, they were all there for Garcia to get him with at any moment in time. And then, you know, Goossen wasn't there at the press conference afterwards, and that was very upsetting for me to see.
Hold on, nobody was at the press conference with me. No, none of those. Why didn't none of those guys show up? Because they thought he was a punk. Hey, listen, that was a statement, De La Hoya. None of those guys. I think that was a statement. You don't think so?
Yeah, definitely. We don't like you. I mean, what else is there to know?
No,
that kid alone.
I think that was sort of like, hey man, you took a dive, or hey man, you went in there with a crack jab, or hey man, you punked out on this one, and we're not going to be part of that.
So he pulled the De La Hoya.
So he pulled the De La Hoya. Who did De La Hoya pull that with? Of course, it was Hopkins, right?
Bernard Hopkins.
Yeah, I had at this point in time, there's no sense of me continuing. I mean, come on, you know, there's no sense of me getting hurt. Or you know what? I talked about De La Hoya a little bit earlier in the show, and I think that people sort of dog him because he was a pretty boy and he got caught being a drag queen, that kind of good stuff. But pound for pound, man, at one point in time, Oscar fought everybody.
He was one of the best, man. He was bad kid coming out of East LA, man. You know, when I mean bad, he came out of the gym, you know, gym wars, all the proper things that he got when he was coming up on the scene. Pedro, you know him. When he came out on the scene, he was dropping everyone with that left hook, man. You couldn't get away from that thing. He was taking out big names, fighting like a man with his own unique style. And, you know, you cannot take away what he did in the ring. He was an excellent, excellent boxer. He won some amazing fights.
In the Dame Boxing Gym, the ill-fated Dame Boxing Gym run by Carl DeMay, the late Carl DeMay, he was a big real estate developer up here in Northern California. He used to fly me around on his private jet. That's another story for another day. Anyway, he had De La Hoya under some type of advisor or contract and this kind of stuff about 1990, 1991. I used to call De La Hoya on the phone, but I watched De La Hoya in the gym one day, and John Montez was undefeated. And he was a 140-pounder that was undefeated. John Montez could fight. And he went in there, and he annihilated John Montez. I mean, he kicked John Montez's ass so bad, I would have never showed up in the gym again.
What was the secret, you think, that got the De La Hoya like that?
Just De La Hoya was, I think he was just, he's a left-handed guy. He's left-handed. Yeah. I think everything was up based on that left hand. Listen, he couldn't reach an orgasm with the right hand. I mean, you know, he couldn't. I mean, he just couldn't. I mean, he was a one-handed, if ever there was a one-handed fighter, it was Oscar De La Hoya. We're rolling up at a hard break here. This is Ring Talk Live Worldwide, your inside look in the world of boxing and MMA. Johnny Sigel, stick around for a little while. Of course, you are tuned to the longest running fight show in history, Ring Talk Live Worldwide. Happy birthday, Julio Cesar Chavez, of course. How old is he now? Just like me, 39 years old. Happy birthday, champ. You are tuned to Ring Talk Live Worldwide.
Want me, Lord, have mercy, look in my eyes. mercy. Hide your feelings to revealing you can't deny.
I've loved, I've laughed and cried, I've had my fill.
El que deja de aprender, terminó su vida. El que sigue aprendiendo, sigue viviendo.
¡José Sulaimán!
What has he got? If not himself, then he has not to say the things he truly feels.
Él me llevó por primera vez a una clínica de rehabilitación, como lo acabo de decir. Eso también se lo voy a hacer.
The record shows I took the blows and did it my way.
Did you have an idol in the past, or do you have an idol now?
My idol in the past was Elvis Presley.
Elvis Presley es el ídolo que él ha tenido en el pasado.
Now my idol is Mr. Jose Sulu.
Ahora su ídolo es el señor José Sulaimán. Is your first time here in Mexico?
I came through once, but I can't remember exactly what I did, but I was here once.
Mucha fuerza al término de cada episodio, y en esta, evidentemente siendo el hombre de casa.
I'm Frank Ripley, inventor of Fracra, the boxer's water bottle. You're watching WBC Live Channel, powered by Vive.
Three, 2, 5. 7. That's 8-5.
With Pedro Fernandez.
Let the music play just for a second here.
This right here goes out to everyone that has lost someone that they truly love.
So I'm kicking it in Wembley Stadium, Wembley Arena. I think it was like 2004, something like that. Prince and Mehmed's fighting. Of course, I smell marijuana, and I'm wondering what the hell, who can smoke marijuana up here? Puff Daddy, Sean Combs, whatever his name is, whatever name he's using, P. Diddy. But the bottom line is, he was blowing some really great weed. I had no idea who he was. And Ron Wood of the Rolling Stones was kissing his ass. So I saw Ron Wood later at the urinal in a club. We were standing next to each other going to the bathroom. That was a little bit weird anyway. But the bottom line is, I asked Ron Wood, why are you kissing Puff Daddy's ass? He goes, because he's got the best damn weed, man. Anyway, that's the story of Puff Daddy, Ron Wood, of course, me and him at Prince and Mehmed. Of course, Mehmed would fail one fight later and get knocked out. I guess he went to distance with Marco Antonio Barrera, but that was the end of his career because one more fight after that, he won that, but that was a bit of a controversial fight. Now, Prince Hassim Ahmed, one time a world ranked figure at 126 pounds, is 295 pounds at least. If he isn't 300 pounds, pretty close to 300 pounds. Anyway, straight up, let's go back to 122 pounds. Of course, let's talk about Signorella. Of course, he's champion, of course, from Japan. They call him the monster, this and that. He's going to take on Stephen Fulton. Now, Stephen Fulton's already in town, I believe. He's already checked into the land of the sun. Talk about Japan. He's a naturally bigger dude. Will size play any role in this, Scotty? I mean, Johnny Sig?
It could definitely play a size in this. Fulton at 21-0, 8 KOs. Now, the KOs don't really jump out to you, but he is a powerful, strong fighter, especially he's going to be bigger than Naoya Inoue, who's coming up. And Inoue, of course, 24-0, 21 KOs can bang. This should be a great fight. You got to go back with Fulton and look at when he beat Fernandez Figueroa. That was an excellent win for him, Daniel Roman. And, Inoue's coming up in weight, so Fulton will have an advantage here for sure in size.
You know what? He's fighting in his home country. And Eddie Croft explained that last week, that when you go into somebody else's home country, you got to sort of like bring your own food, or you got to find out what kind of food you can eat and where you have to. If you have to go to a sauna, you have to find out where the sauna is. You have to have hot baths. I mean, the whole 9 yards. You have to have all these contingency factors in order to get things rolling in a successful camp. And a lot of times the promoter doesn't want to have you. I mean, they're not bringing you over there to win.
Well, the thing is, you got to acclimate over there. I mean, you can't pull Lennox Lewis when he went over to Africa, against Hasim Rock.
But Lennox was smoking more weed than me and you down there. He was doing the movie with.
He was doing the movie Ocean's 11.
Ocean's 11 with, but yeah, he was kicking it with all those guys in Las Vegas, having a good time. Then he went down there, and Hasim Rahman knocks him out. Of course, a bit of an upset. Rahman appears on the show like an hour and a half later. The late Stan Hoffman hooked that up. So Rahman appears on the show, and then Rahman gives the title back to Lennox Lewis in a bit of a not so. He really didn't put up much of a fight the second time. But the real story of that fight was he had a contract from HBO, and I think he had a check for $3.5 or $4 million in his hand, and he took $500,000 in a duffel bag from Don King instead.
Man, only in boxing, right?
Well, I remember who wasn't. Somebody got convinced. I think he got convinced the check was going to bounce. Blood. Don King worked him over all night. Listen, Don was a negotiator in this way, and Cedric Kushner and Dan Duva and all these guys that went to war with him at the negotiating table told me that he would try to outlast you. In other words, if we started negotiations at like 4:30 in the afternoon, Don King would try to stretch you to like 2:00 in the morning, because he figured
try to burn you out.
And the weaker you got, you regress, and your demands wouldn't be that good, this and that. But Dan Duva said that when he sat down, the late Dan Duva, God rest his soul, but when he sat down to negotiate with Don King, he said he made sure he had a full night's rest.
Only in America and only in Don's America, man.
So Fulton, 21 and zip. You think he's got a shot against Naoya?
Yeah, definite shot. I mean, Inoue is so nasty in the ring. Again, that power and the confidence. And, we are in Tokyo over there, as we were talking about just now. How does Fulton acclimate? Is he eating the right food? Is he staying away from certain foods? Is he getting support that he needs, a support system? I mean, he is a champion, so you think that he would get top-notch treatment. But that does play a huge factor, Pete. That's a great point.
Well, here's what's up. I think it's great he went over there for 2 weeks and he got acclimated and things like that. Either you go over for 2 weeks and get acclimated, or you go over like the day before. It's either one or the other. I mean, there's no in-betweens. I remember when Cain Velasquez went down to Mexico to face Fabrice Verdum for the UFC heavyweight title, he showed up like a week before. And it's like, if you're ever in Mexico City, the altitude was so bad. We were in a building one time. We were in a building, the stairs, we were going upstairs at a WBC convention, and people were fainting on the steps.
Oh,
that because of the high altitude and it was hot.
Yeah.
Right? So Cain went down there with no respect for the altitude, and he got licked like a stamp.
Absolutely. You got to adjust to these things.
Definitely
one extreme to the other. Like you said, you got to go 2 weeks out, or just show up that way.
Or just show up, yeah. All right, now let's switch gears. Of course, Spence-Crawford, the undercard, looks like Nonito Donaire has been shifted his undercard. He was going to take on Alexander Santiago, 27-3, of course. Donaire got flattened his last time out, I think, by the aforementioned Noah. It's been about a year and a half or 2 years. He's 40 years old. Is there a time where you should pull the plug?
He's such a likable guy. I hate to tell anyone how to earn a living. This is a hard living. And again, he's such a likable guy. So many great memories. I mean, I think so, man. We'll get a good look at where he's at. He was supposed to fight on tonight's Showtime card, as you mentioned. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad he at least gets, the spotlight again on a big pay-per-view. He deserves it. But again, we have to wait and see. But things haven't been looking so good. But not too long ago, he fought Inoue the first time and went 12 rounds. And then it was in the rematch where we saw some real dicey stuff. And I think it was over in the second, to my knowledge. And
dicey stuff? What do you mean by what do you mean by dicey stuff?
Well, I mean, in terms of like you just saw, it didn't look like him. Like I don't know what was going on there. I'm not suggesting anything. It just maybe signs of decline, you know, as far as reflexes, and maybe he just never warmed up properly. Just something looked very off with him in that fight.
Okay, looks like the opponent's going to be a Suicide Blonde. You know what a Suicide Blonde is, Johnny?
Monster anyway.
No. Suicide Blonde means died by your own hands.
Okay.
Got it? Suicide Blonde died by your own hands. Anyway, 27-3, Alejandro Santiago taking on Nonito Donaire on the undercards. Donaire, I'm going to say 40. He's got to be close to 41 years old now. I mean, it's time maybe just to hang it up. But he's got a manager. His wife is his manager and his trainer and this and that. And, you know, and Rachel, and I've dogged her over the years. But guess what, man? They're pretty successful together. He's 42-7, only been stopped 2 times, 28 KOs. Of course, 40 years old. But, yeah, I can't say. Some fighters stick around too long. But I will say this. He does seem to have he's very lucid. I mean, he doesn't seem to show any residual effects as far as boxing is concerned right now, but they don't always show up right away when you're fighting.
Let me tell you something about Donaire. Whenever you picture him, don't you always just picture a smile on his face? Like he's just always happy. Like even like when he's got like knots on his eyes, you know, he's just always a happy guy. So something's going on in his life where, like you said, you know, people around him are good. He's happy with his personal life, you know, and his faculties certainly seem there, and hopefully we keep it that way. And I think that we'll see how sharp he is too physically, you know, come on that undercard, because that definitely helps push the needle, moves the needle forward for that undercard.
Okay, people like Bob Arum had problems negotiating with his wife, or his manager and his trainer. Now I'm talking about Rachel. Is that a plus or a minus?
You'd have to ask him. You know, I mean, it depends on how people.
Johnny sidestepped that one.
Yeah, when it comes to business and you know, personal, that's really a preference of the own individual. Look at that! I went right into it.
No, but she's pissed off a lot of people.
Yeah, so I've heard.
Yeah, so you know, I mean, it's like you're negotiating with Rachel Donaire. Oh my God! Okay, tonight on the Zone, Alicia Baumgartner is taking on Christina Leonardo. They're fighting at 130 pounds for the world title. Is Baumgartner really worthy of watching?
Yeah, man, she got 7 KOs. I believe it's for the undisputed super feather, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
For the ladies tonight on the Zone. I know they have Josh Kelly on one of their cards too, and versus Gabriel Corzo. But tonight on Showtime, Pedro, Frank Martin, 17-0, 12 KOs. Artem, I'm going to try to get this right. Part of Union, who's 12-0, 7 KOs. Now check this out. Martin's got 7 knockouts in his last 10, whereas Artem has 6 in his last 10. Both guys unbeaten at 135. This could be a good sleeper fight no one was really talking about.
Now, last week you dogged Martin to an extent. You
forgot.
There's other lightweights you want to talk about. Speaking of lightweights, let's talk about Devin Haney. Now, Devin Haney was arrested this week. Of course, they found a gun in his car. There was like 4 or 5 or 6 guys in the car. Nobody copped whose gun it was, and he got arrested. I think the cops should have arrested everybody. I would have. I mean, Devin Haney got singled out here, and you know, bottom line is it was a dumb move having a gun, this and that. But he isn't like taking the gun out and shooting at people, this and that. There's a reason he was carrying the gun. I think he felt threatened to an extent because he's the world lightweight champion, this and that. I don't know what kind of security team he has, but if he had a security team, one of those guys should have copped to the gun.
Absolutely, or someone take responsibility for it, for sure. You know, just to make everything go smooth. Now you got an arrest, and then you got bail, and all this other stuff that goes along with it. I followed it and read into it a little bit. You know, it just seems like one of those things you learn from, man. You make mistakes, you learn from them. You know, these guys are still growing up. We watched them grow up at a very early stage of their career, which is unlike what used to be in boxing. We saw these kids from the crib come up, so we feel like they've been around forever. They're still kids.
August 19th, let's move it up to ESPN. Artur Beterbiev, the monster at 175, of course, taking on Callum Smith. Is there a reason why Canelo Alvarez won at Dimitri Bivol and not the WBC champion Artur Beterbiev?
Because Beterbiev's nasty, boy. Like, he fights very crude. He's got good skill with straight punches. He hits like a hammer, though, man. Like, I don't think Canelo wanted any of that smoke.
He fights ugly. He's not the most handsome guy in the world either.
No. Not at all.
He fights about his life. He's a hard guy to look at. Anyway, the bottom line is he's a hard guy to fight. But no, he is. He's a hard guy to fight. I mean, holy cow, if I stepped in the ring with him, I wouldn't know how to deal with him because I just don't know how long you can stick and move on that guy before he cracks you.
That you got me picturing Arnold Schwarzenegger versus the Predator in the original Predator movie when the Predator removes his mask.
Yeah.
You got me.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, the former governor of California. Of course, he did some things here in California we're still paying for. August the 5th, Araceli Lara and Danny Garcia. Why is Danny Garcia fighting at 154, the former junior welterweight champion?
Okay.
Wait, no, at 160.
I'm pointing the phrase, COVID cash grabs. That's what these are. Fighters who have been out of the ring since COVID or COVID affected or decided, whatever, I'm not fighting for a while. They're coming back for the COVID cash grab. They haven't fought in a while. You got to eat, right? They made themselves accustomed to lifestyles. Danny Garcia's got a hair salon. He's got all this other stuff going on. Good for him. But guess what? You got to make money.
Danny Garcia is one of those guys. Danny Garcia, I don't like Danny Garcia or his father. I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not a big.
I'm in the same boat.
Just like to Teofimo Lopez and his father, those two guys are out to lunch.
Oh man, put them all in the same room. Imagine that.
Oh man, I mean, his kid was getting his ass kicked. He's out there doing the salsa dancing ringside. What is he doing? What's he doing? And I thought he was on coke.
Yeah, that definitely.
I mean, he looked like like nothing could bother him. I'm doing my son's losing, but I'm dancing, I'm having a great time. Let's talk about real quick. I got about 30 seconds. Jake Paul and Nate Diaz. Jake Paul's invincibility sort of went away with Tommy Fury. I tried to talk him out of that fight, and he took it anyway. Is Nate Diaz a threat to him?
Could be, but Nate Diaz looked real slow in the UFC last time and mixed martial arts in general and combat sport. I don't really think so. Otherwise, they wouldn't be taking this fight. But I do respect Paul. I do like what he's doing. He's bringing some people to the sport, and he's taking care of Amanda Serrano real good. So respect for him for that.
Johnny Signorella appears Sunday on Ring Talk Live Worldwide. Check it out Sunday. Have a great weekend, brother.
Thanks, Pedro. Thanks, guys.
Talking too fast there. Straight up, this is Ring Talk Live World. Slow down, Pedro. This is Ring Talk Live Worldwide. More after the break.
Look in my eyes. Lord have mercy.
Devin Haney nació en San Francisco, California. Debutó en el año de 2015. Sus primeras 4 contiendas fueron en México. Conquistó el campeonato mundial peso ligero del WBC venciendo al dominicano Alfredo Santiago. Ha defendido el verde y oro contra Jorge Linares, Joseph Díaz, 2 veces contra George Kambosos y la más reciente en fenomenal y polémica contienda frente al ucraniano Vasil Lomachenko. Es poseedor de un estilo muy especial y de una gran velocidad para soltar los puños y para desplazarse a lo largo y ancho del cuadrilátero. Es un invitado especial en esta tarde de celebración. Es The Dream Devin Haney.
I am the Tasmanian Devil, 5-time world champion. Tune in to the WBC. Tune in.
For Ring Talk with Pedro Fernandez.
The biggest payday Francis Ngannou ever got in the UFC was $600,000. In other words, one of those gates, I think he did like $7 or $8 million for a live gate, not counting the pay-per-view, not counting the T-shirts. All right, just a live gate, like $7 million live gate, right? He got $600,000. That's all he gets. You think Dana White's a pimp? I keep saying that every week. That Dana White's a pimp. You think I'm wrong? I mean, come on. He's getting $8 million to fight Tyson Fury in this boxing rematch, exhibition, whatever you want to call it, mismatch. People say to me it's going to be a boxing mismatch. It's not. Francis Ngannou's got good height. I think he's 6'5", so he's standing up there with Tyson Fury as far as his height's concerned, and he can punch. He can punch really, really hard. Statistically, he might be a harder puncher than Tyson Fury. But then again, this is going to go down, of course, somewhere in Saudi Arabia. Of course, the Saudi Arabians, I think, are ruining boxing, much like the sport of golf. But Francis Ngannou and Tyson Fury has been given a pass by the WBC to fight in this exhibition or a fight, whatever you want to call it. But the bottom line is it's going down in Saudi Arabia. I'm not a big fan of the Saudi Arabians as far as their involvement in sports is concerned. And I'll tell you why, because I think I'm not going to go into politics. I better stay away from that or I'll get in some trouble. But the bottom line is I'm not a big fan of Saudi Arabians' money as far as their involvement in sports is concerned. Of course, tonight, boxing on Showtime, ESPN, and, of course, The Zone as well. Of course, the world of the UFC, I'm not a big UFC fan. You guys know that. But Volkanovski, of course, was a winner last week. Want to give him some props. Of course, he is the world featherweight champion. Take that back to 145 pounds. Defeat Yair Rodriguez in the second round. Take it back to third round with the TKO. Outside of that, there were no big names on that card because Dana White doesn't have any big names. He's done with names. And when Ngannou walked, I said to myself, good. His heavyweight champion walks away. You sort of knew that Dana White didn't like him because the last time he fought for Dana White, Dana didn't put the belt on him. You know, Dana wants to be on television, right? Well, Dana didn't want to be on television that night. He didn't put the belt around Ngannou's waist. Anyway, bottom line is Dana White, I wish he would just go away, but he's not going to go away. He'll be here for a long time. Of course, he is Donald Trump's favorite guy. Donald Trump was at one of his fights a couple weeks ago. What can I say about that? Nothing. Straight up, you are tuned to Ring Talk Live worldwide and WBC TV. All right, thank you so much for tuning in, whether it's on the radio, whether it's TV, of course, WBC TV, Twitch.tv, the Sports Byline USA channel. My man, Daniel Ogden's my great producer for Saturday. I want to thank Johnny Sagan. Next week, of course, the return of Boxing's PhD, Socrates Palmer. This is Ring Talk Live worldwide, but hey, you know that.